Welcome to video number 7 in Module 309, Class 4 Driver Training. This is all about Chapter 10 in the manual, and when you read the chapter, you don't want to read the whole thing because there's only a small part of it that's relevant to you. So you want to read the first couple of pages of that chapter, and then you want to move to pages 218 to 224 to look at the specifics of the unrestricted Class 4 license pre-trip inspection. So the pre-trip inspection is something we're going to do in person, and this video will touch on some of it, but a lot of it is demonstrated best in real life, and so we'll do that in a true pre-trip role play or walkthrough. The pre-trip inspection has to be done by law before the first use of that vehicle every day, and the day is considered to start after midnight. So let's say you're doing an overnight trip and you stop for coffee someplace at 1 o'clock in the morning. That is the first time the vehicle will get started again on that new day, so the pre-trip inspection has to happen then. And it also is supposed to have a post-trip after the last trip of every day. Now, it's the pre-trip they care the most about. It's the pre-trip you'll be asked to actually demonstrate in the actual road test. It's something that happens before you actually go in the vehicle, and it's something that the employers will ask you to document as well. So the pre-trip is used only before the first trip of every day. It is considered to be a shared responsibility between both the employer and the driver that these trip inspections lead to the vehicle being in its best condition. But it's your job to actually do the pre-trip inspection. And it's their job to respond to any defects or issues you bring to their attention. During the test, you must do a pre-trip inspection, as I said, during the road test, and you have to let the examiner know what you're checking for. So it's really important for you to walk your way through it and talk your way through it. And remember, there is an allotted time. So even though you may not have a vehicle like this at home, a lot of what we do can be done on your own personal vehicle, and I would really suggest that you practice doing it and timing yourself and getting better as you go along. When you're doing a pre-trip inspection, there are a few things you'll want to make sure you have with you. A flashlight is a really important tool for checking under the hood or when you're underneath the car. You'll want something called a tire gauge, and if you don't have one, you can easily buy one at almost any gas station, Walmart, or Canadian Tire. There are lots of different variations, but really simple is fine and cheap is fine. You'll also need some kind of cloth or paper towel to keep your hands clean and for doing things like checking oil. You'll need a pen, and notice I say a pen and not a pencil. You need something that will not be erasable as you complete the documentation. You'll need the form, the actual pre-trip inspection form, and I'll bring those when we do the in-class practical. And you'll want it on a clipboard with some kind of plastic cover or on a binder, or you'll want to do the pre-trip inspection inside of a garage as much as you can. You'll probably want gloves as well so that you don't get grease or corrosive stuff on your hands, and it's also important to make sure that you have proper eye and head protection. You'll be expected to do an actual written report. It's not sophisticated, it's a checklist, but it should be done and leave a written record afterwards. You'll need to include the license plate number of the vehicle that you are inspecting, and if you work for somebody that has more than one vehicle, each vehicle will have to have what they call a unit number, and you'll have to use that as well. You'll be expected to write down any defects that you discover that day, and if they affect the safe operation of the vehicle, specifically you have to make note of them and report them. Or if you found no defect, you have to actually say that. You have to state the date and sign the report. And again, you must be doing this before the first trip of the day, and if you are overnight on a trip, after you have stopped past midnight, before you start again, you have to do it. You must repair any defects before driving if they in any way may impact the safe operation of a vehicle. So if the radio doesn't work, we don't really care. But if the windshield wipers don't work, even if it's a sunny day, we care, because if it starts raining when we're out there, we can't operate. If you're driving in a vehicle and you have 2 passengers and the vehicle has 7 seats and one of the seat belts doesn't work, it's probably okay to operate as long as you're not going to be picking up more people. So you really have to take a look at whether something is going to be in the way of operating the vehicle safely, and it's your judgment that the employer has to trust. So you'll find unrestricted class 4 of the bus pre-trip inspection on page 218. It takes 20 minutes, and you are expected to look at the person who wrote before you and see whether or not there were any defects reported there. You must make sure that you park the vehicle safely, and most motor vehicle branches are on level ground, so it's fairly easy. You have to park it in a place where you'll have the ability to walk around the vehicle, and you'll notice when you read the chapter that they even give you a recommended direction so that when you come around the vehicle, you are facing any oncoming traffic. You have to make sure that the vehicle's engine is off, that it's in gear, and or has the parking brake set, and in park if you're driving an automatic, which most people will be. You must set the parking brake or emergency brake, and you must use something called wheel chocks or blocks to keep it from rolling. If you're doing a restricted, which we don't need to worry about, that begins on page 225, and it's for 15 minutes, and no wheel blocking is needed. Now, one last thing before we wrap up this video, and that is that when you're doing a pre-trip inspection, in the case of the test, it must be on a class 4 vehicle. So you can practice on your own vehicle at home, but you can't bring your own vehicle for the pre-trip or the road test. It has to be an actual class 4 vehicle. So I've seen people borrow vehicles from employers or rent vehicles and sometimes collectively do it with other people who want to do the exam at the same time, so they save money. Or a third option is to take a class 4 driving course, and they will actually let you use their vehicle and often expedite the process. They can usually actually do the testing with you. So it's a really good option, but you have to have your class 4 learners before you can do it.